Attention.
Hi, my name is Erica Olson. This whiteboard session is on putting together your SWOT, which stands for Strengths, Weaknesses, Opportunities, and Threats. Now before you push the pause button, I'm here to tell you that we are going to talk today about how to make a SWOT work for your organization and be useful, and not just an exercise in putting together a 2x2 matrix. Alright, so let's get started. Strengths, when we identify them, what do we do with them? We capitalize on them. Weaknesses, we shore them up. Opportunities, we invest in. And threats, we identify. So let's break this down one step further. This is internal. Okay, so these are items that are internal, super important. This, external. The minute we confuse the two, we have a big mess on our hands and the SWOT is no longer useful. So let's address a confusing point. Yes, weaknesses are also opportunities. People don't like that language all the time, so if you don't like the word weakness, call it area of opportunity, okay? But the point is, stuff that we can control and stuff that we cannot control but we can impact. Big difference. So let's talk about the internal side for just a moment. We need to collect data to populate the SWOT. We can create it on our own on the fly, but you know, that's kind of like putting a strategic plan or a strategy together in a vacuum, so I don't think you should do that. We want to get information into the SWOT based on customer feedback, your surveys, focus groups, however it is that you gather that, employee information via an employee survey, and we're looking for things such as specifically capabilities. What capabilities do we have that are strengths or weaknesses? Resources, money, brand, building, assets, that type of stuff that we have or don't have that are working for us, and processes. Things that we do, those internal processes that we do that are either great or not great. For example, a lot of times people think a weakness is communication. Communication, of course, is a process. Kind of a nice way to think about that, ends up in the weakness box. Let's move over to opportunities. External, what are we looking for? We're looking for secondary data that tells us something about our environment. Okay, what are we talking about there? Not the trees necessarily. I'm talking about mortgage rates, interest rates, data that impacts our business. That's the environmental information. That's secondary. Industry data. Okay, so what's happening in our industry? Maybe from your industry associations, that type of thing. And competitive data. Okay, all of these are secondary data sources. For the most part, sometimes people hire out obtaining competitive data, that's up to you, but for the most part those are secondary data sources. The other thing that does go over here as well, however, is some customer feedback, which would be primary data, right? Stuff that we collect ourselves that deal with maybe opportunities or threats and are not necessarily related to some things that we're doing internally. So we have all this. Normally we have bullet points all over the place. What do we do with it? Well, we want to actually take this information and create a list of ideas that we would then drop into goal statements. Okay, so this is, again, big pet peeve of mine. We go through this whole exercise of putting a SWOT together and we do nothing with it because we don't know what to do with it. I'm here to tell you, and we'll look at how we identify ideas in a moment, list of ideas that then get sort of fleshed out or prioritized, and we end up developing goals and action items or objectives, whatever the case may be, in your strategic plan. So how do we come up with these ideas? Here's how we do it. We take our strengths and we match them up with opportunities. That's one thing. Another way to generate ideas is to match up weaknesses with strengths. So, i.e., do we have a strength that can offset a weakness of ours, or do we have a strength that will help us to capitalize or invest in an opportunity that's out there? Threats we need to be aware of, but one thing that we can do is say, are there opportunities that will offset these threats? Okay? So my big tip for you is, first of all, make sure that you're informing the SWOT development effectively. That means getting the data that we talked about, not just being a management team exercise around a round table. Okay? And the second thing then is make sure we do something with it, because the whole purpose is to inform our strategy development with great information, use this tool to suss it out, and then develop some great goals so you can move your organization forward.